Hey there, and welcome to section 3 of the jumping method. In this section, we're going to be editing an image from start to finish, just like we did in our last section. Only we're taking a different part of the photo shoot. This time she was jumping off the ground, and I decided, you know what? Let's go ahead and see if we can completely make the ground drop away. So instead of having basically an object she was jumping off of and removing that object like we did in the first, we're going to be completely dropping the ground away and making it look as though our subject is levitating in the middle of the air. Hey there, and welcome to section 3. This is we're going to be finishing up this the jumping portion of the tutorial anyway. Gosh, you guys are getting such an awesome tutorial with so many cool images. In our last section, section 2, we covered this image. We showed you from start to finish, all the way from our background, adding our subject in, and doing some light retouching, some dodging and burning as well, and then giving the image a little bit more color and a little bit more life. Very, very cool. So let's go ahead and give that a the close. It's gonna save and then close. And now we're going to be working on our final image, and this will be all of section 3. So this image is, we're doing something a little bit less traditional with Levitation here. I'm actually going to drop the floor totally out of the picture, which I'm excited about. I've never done this before. Well, I did it yesterday, but before this image, I've never done this before. So we're going to give it a shot and see how it goes. It's going to be great. So let's go ahead and let's group this with itself. Command G. Let's just call this extra. Same as we did last time. We'll keep our plan intact. Okay, and now what we're going to do is here on this layer, what I'm going to do is basically make a couple copies, and we're going to stretch. Well, we're not stretching anything. We're just going to move some areas down. So this is our floor. Let's go ahead and group this layer with itself. We're going to double click here, and we're going to call this floor. Okay, because we're going to be doing quite a bit of stuff with this floor. So first thing I would like to do is grab a marquee selection tool. Okay, and we're just going to copy like the bottom half of this image. There we go. Because I don't need to be messing around with this top half. It's just going to get in the way. So we're going to select that, and I'm going to hit Control or Command J. We're just going to duplicate to a new layer. Okay, so we've got one of those, and we're going to go ahead and make another copy. So I'm going to hit Control or Command J again, and now we have 2. Learned a little bit of math here. Okay, so we have 2 versions of the floor. One we're going to drop down half the distance, the other will drop down the other half. Okay, so what I'd like to do here is lower my opacity, and we're going to start by using our move tool and just dropping this down basically as far as I possibly can without getting any kind of weird distortions, things like that. Now, just like with the other image, it's a little bit difficult to see what I'm doing here. So we're going to go into our extra group. I'm going to create an adjustment layer. We're going to go to curves and then pop that right up just so I can see what I'm doing. This will wind up getting deleted later, but for now, I'd like to be able to see what I'm doing. Here we go. So this is our floor here. There we go. So we're going to drop this down right to about there. I think this is going to work pretty well. And then I want to line this up. So let's just zoom in. Okay. We're going to hit Control or Command T because I have to stretch this out a little bit. So Command T, we're just going to go to the right hand side here and wind up stretching this out a little bit. There we go. And then bring it back. Then stretch it out a little bit more. There may be a faster way to do this, but there we go. That works pretty well. Stretch it out just a little bit more. Command T. Okay. All right. Now, chances are we're not going to get this perfect, but that's where layer masking and things like that come in. Okay, looking good. Well, let's go ahead and take this layer. I'm going to bring it back all the way up to 100%. There we are. And now we've effectively dropped our floor. Doesn't look great just yet, but it will look better, I promise. All right, let's grab a layer mask. We're going to put a layer mask on there, and I'm going to paint black with my regular soft edge brush here. There we go. We're just going to paint black right here on the border, keeping the edge nice and soft. There we are. All right, and let's paint it away where her foot comes down as well. All right. There we go. And I'm debating whether or not I'm going to leave this little line in there, but I think we're going to wind up removing that. So we're going to get right in here close to her foot, and we're going to mask this area away, which is it's going to get rid of a little bit of shadow area, but not a big deal. We can always use a curves adjustment layer and paint back darker areas for shadows. So in this case, sometimes shadows are very clearly defined. Like you can see the very nice outline of a person in the shadow and things like that. You know, in those cases, you want to be a little more careful about removing shadows and then trying to recreate them in Photoshop. In this case, we'll be just fine. I guarantee it. Let me be your tour guide. You're in good hands. All right, there we go. Looking good. So we've extended the floor one time, and the perspective here doesn't exactly match up. We could like clone stamp out those or something like that. Some people may want to do like a transform and things like that, but I think we'll be all right if we just bring it again. So we've dropped the floor once, already looking like, you know, dang man, she's really jumping high. We can drop the floor again. Same idea. So let's have that be visible. We're going to lower our opacity here. Okay. Let's use our move tool, and then we're going to go all the way down to here until we don't see a floor. So this is a very creative decision here. Not calling myself incredibly creative, but you don't have to do this. Is what I'm kind of getting at here. There we go. By the way, I am going to show you how to do this a little bit faster. Okay, so we are bringing this point to where it lines up. You can see this on the right hand side doesn't really line up. The left hand side does. So I'm going to take my anchor point and just take it to where it lines up, right about there. Okay, and we're going to stretch it out. And if I just stretch it out by just clicking and dragging, you can see it does this. Not so helpful, but if I hold down the Alt or the Option key, now it does this. Okay, so the difference is here's no Alt or Option, and here is holding Alt or Option. It's like this is squinching from the right to the left, and this is squinching from that point that we created. Squinching. Taking a page out of Peter Hurley's book. If you guys don't know Peter Hurley, he's a great headshot photographer out of New York. He uses the term squinch. Okay, that looks pretty good. That looks pretty good. Now we're going to bring back our opacity up to 100% again, and we're going to layer mask this in. Great. So our layer mask. I was thinking a little bit just then. You know what? I think we can bring this up just a little bit more. All right. There we are. Bring that in. Okay, looking good. And now I realize we've got some blending and stuff like that to do, but I want to crop this image in to get a good idea of what it's going to finally look like. Because I do want it to make it look like as though, you know, she's really high up in the air. So I'm going to give this like a long vertical crop. All right, there we go. That looks pretty cool. Yeah, let's go with that for now. Stretch it out just a little bit more. Okay, let's hit enter. As always, let's make sure this is not checked. Delete crop pixels. That way we can get back any of that information if we'd like to get it back. All right, I think that's gonna work out really nice. Okay, so now I have to blend these in. Let's start with our first floor. We're gonna make it just a bit darker so it blends in here, okay? So we're gonna grab an adjustment layer, go to curves, and by default, if I make, you know, curves lighter or darker, it's gonna affect everything. So if I only want it to affect the floor, what we're gonna do is I'm gonna right click here and I'm going to go to create clipping mask. There we go. Now it's only going to affect this layer. All right, so, oh man, Photoshop makes me sneeze. All right, let's click right here in the middle and just drag that down till it kind of blends in just a little bit better. There we go. You can see the before and after just kind of blending in a little bit better. Okay, that looks pretty good. Let's go ahead and do something similar with this guy here. Let's just make sure that it lines up very nicely here. All right, Command T. We're gonna change this little point. Oops. We're gonna change this little point to right about there. I'm gonna hold Alt or Option, and we're just gonna click and drag right here. There we go. Let's hit Enter there. That's lining up pretty well. So we're gonna do the same thing we did earlier with this curves adjustment, and then clip it. You know what? This could be a little bit lighter. So here we are. Let's grab an adjustment layer. Curves. Okay, remember it's going to affect everything until we clip it. So clipping, right click here, go to create a clipping mask, and it's going to clip it to the layer right below. Okay, and now this time we would just want to bring this down a bit. Now, sometimes it works out to where you need to do this a couple of times. And I think this may be one of those cases where for the most part, this looks pretty good. If I go too dark, you can see it's looking too dark. So this looks pretty good, but we're getting just a little bit of area like right here. You can see just right there needs to be a little bit darker. So we can do this again. It's not a problem. Do it a couple times. Let's create a curves adjustment layer. Option Command G to clip this, and then have this visible just there. And then we'll hit Command I on the layer mask, and then just paint it back visible right over here. And look at that really nice blend that we got going on. Cool. Very good. Very good. And we should see just a really nice, yeah, I like that. Especially when we make the extra speck invisible. Then it kind of fades to black, which is nice. Okay, well, let's go ahead and group those together. Command G. All right, and let's see. Okay, so there's a lot of our effect right there. Now, I am gonna take care of a few details like that perspective because it's just kind of bugging me. That does not look right. It's probably bugging you too. Depends on how detail oriented you are. I tend to be quite detail oriented. So let's create a new layer. I'm going to group this with itself, and we're just going to call this retouch. Okay, now here inside of this retouch group, I'm going to hit S for the clone stamp. So S for the clone stamp, we're going to sample current and below. So that's going to sample the current layer that we're on and the layers directly below it. So that way, if I turn this back off, we're good to go. It's not going to contain the adjustment layer that makes everything lighter here. All right, but I'm going to leave it on while I clone stamp. And I'm just going to get rid of these guys here. If I really wanted to, we could select them and then like try to match all the angles and build perspective back in. And if this were not so dark, I would probably be more inclined to do so. However, given that it is a very dark part of the image, that's a detail that's most likely not going to be seen. And in that case, it's probably not worth spending a ton of time on. Now, if you were to make this a print, oftentimes you see this stuff in print more than you do on the web or whatever it is. So if I were preparing this for print, I would probably do a little bit more of a thorough job here. But on the web, especially with the darkened backup, that looks actually pretty good. Okay, let's go ahead and you know what? We're gonna get rid of this as well. The ring ride here. Again, I've just got the clone stamp tool. S for that clone stamp tool. All right, sample from a few different areas when you're doing this, and it's going to allow you to create patterns that don't necessarily look like they're just duplicating over and over again. Okay. There we go. It looks pretty good. All right, so we've gotten rid of that. If there's any more little things that just may be distracting, we can get rid of those too. And this is a total personal preference, by the way. Some people are purists and they enjoy leaving all the original details in, and other people don't mind getting rid of distractions. I am in the latter camp, but if you're in the purist camp, that's totally cool. Just leave those things in, and that'll save you some work in Photoshop too. All right, yeah, that's looking good. Okay, I'm glad I removed that couple things. So they were just a little bit distracting to me. Okay, that looks pretty good. All right, so we've got our extra group here, and already I like this image a lot. I think it's got a lot of movement. The light is nice. It doesn't give too much away. And now we're going to start enhancing this a little bit more. So let's go ahead and start off. We're going to do some dodging and burning. So same as we did in section 2, new layer here. I'm going to use my brush tool. We're going to change our layer blend mode to soft light. Okay, and then we're going to paint with our default colors, which are black and white. So you hit D for your default colors, and then that'll bring up black and white. And then to switch back and forth between them, you can hit X on your keyboard. All right, just remember, if you're gonna dodge or burn a larger area, use a larger brush. If you're gonna go for a smaller area, use a smaller brush. Okay, outline her, because it's a pretty dark image here, and I want to make sure that she's pretty well defined. So, you know, taking care of the highlights and everything like that, it's just going to help out make sure that she is pretty well defined. If you do find that you've painted too much, just grab your eraser tool, E for your eraser tool, and you can erase those areas away. All right. So lightening some of these areas, darkening some, just to get a little bit more contrast going on and kind of bring her out from the shadows just a little bit more. All right, let's look at that before and the after real quick. Okay. I think it looks pretty good. What do you think? Pretty good? All right, let's keep going. Cool. The next thing I'd like to do is to change the color. We're going to work a little bit more with color on this. So we're going to grab an adjustment layer. I'm going to go to our, first we're going to create a new layer, and we're going to group this with itself, and we're going to call this color. Staying organized is really key whenever you're doing something like this. It just helps make everything easier. Okay, so here in our color group, I'm going to grab a curves adjustment layer. Okay, we're going to lighten some things up. Click right here in the middle, lighten them up. Okay, we're going to add a little bit of red. We're going to warm things up as well. We're going to add a little bit of green. Okay, that looks good. Okay, now I'm going to hit Command I on that layer mask, and then we can use our gradient tools. G for the gradient tool. I said that like so enthusiastically. We can use our gradient tool. Hit G for the gradient tool. We're going to grab our gradient here. We're going to choose foreground transparent as our gradient that we're going to choose. And we're going to hit OK. And now we have a black layer mask here. So we want to choose gradient tool, linear gradient, foreground to transparent, and paint with white. I know it seems like a lot of steps, but once you get used to using the gradient tool, it's pretty simple. And next we're just going to click from the top and drag down. And it's just going to give us a nice gradient. Warming that up just a bit. All right, that looks good. Let's go ahead and do another one of these curves adjustment layers, just so I can bring a little bit more light down into this elevator shaft, and just allow the viewer to see a little bit more of what's going on, so it's not so, you know, there we go. It's not so dark as to where like, I don't really know what's going on. I wanted, you know, to be able to see that, like, okay, she's high up. I can't see anything down there, and you know, she looks like she's pretty high up in the air. All right, that looks good. That looks, yeah, I dig this so far. This is coming together very nicely. Let's have some fun with our light streaks. We're gonna make some light streaks here. It's gonna be fun. Okay, so on a new layer here, what we're gonna do, I'm gonna hit B for the brush tool, and we're gonna sample a color. Let's just sample this color here. Why not? And now we're gonna grab our marquee tool. So M for the marquee tool, and I'm gonna make a square in the window that looks like this. Cool, pretty easy. And now I'm just gonna hold the shift key down, and we're gonna make a few of these, okay? So one for each of these window panes. All right, almost done. You don't have to be perfect here, because these are gonna get blurred in just a little bit, but having a little bit of separation is nice, you know. Or, you know what? If you want to go a little bit quicker, you just do one and then hold down the Alt or the Option key, which brings up the minus selection. Look at that. Ha! Always trying to get faster and better. There we go. Nice and easy. Okay, so we have a selection now. That's what the selection looks like. I'm going to hit Shift Delete to fill with our foreground color. There we go. Let's hit OK. And deselect by hitting Command D. Okay, now we have this. Okay, let's go ahead and hit Command J to duplicate it. Anytime I'm about to do like a big effect, like a big blur or something like that, and I'm not 100% sure how it's going to wind up affecting my final, I'd like to duplicate that layer, because it just gives me another option. If this doesn't turn out, I'll just go back to my original. Okay, so now let's go ahead and try giving this a nice blur. I'm going to go to Filter. We're going to go to Blur, and I'm going to go down here to Radial Blur. Okay, now here in Radial Blur, you have a few different options here. You have a Spin Blur, which will be like if you're wanting to make it look like a baseball is spinning through the air or something like that. That's a really nice blur there. You also have a Zoom Blur, which will make it look as though something is zooming in or out. And you can change your amount of zoom here. So we're going to take our blur center, and we're just going to push this towards the top of the image, right about there. You kind of have to guess here, but if you get it wrong, not a big deal. You just come back and do it again. All right, and now we're going to really just crank up our amount all the way to 100. Let's see how this looks. Let's hit OK. All right, there we go. So it's kind of like blurring out from the windows. Now, it doesn't look great now. If we change our layer blend mode from normal down to something like screen, it should start to look pretty cool. Yeah, that does look pretty cool. Okay, let's just apply the same filter again. So we'll go to Filter, and then now instead of going all the way down here to Blur and then Radial Blur, if you just look all the way up here at the top, this is always going to be the last filter that you used. In this case, the last filter we used was a Radial Blur. So if I just go to Filter right here, it's just going to do the exact same one again. So we'll click on there and did it again. You can hit Command or Control F as well. So I'll try that now. Command or Control F. Okay. How cool was that? Look at that. That's cool. I'm happy we made that. Okay. And now it looks like, you know, lights shining through the window, giving it a little bit more of that like really cool effect. And I don't need this other one underneath it, right? I don't need this guy anymore because I like this. It's not too much. You know, Sometimes these sort of effects can look too fake or whatever. This is not too much. It's pretty good. Just needs a layer mask because this area doesn't look, shouldn't be doing that. So let's click on our layer mask, hit B for the brush tool, and now we'll just paint black here, right up there. There we go. We'll get a little bit of, you know, light tends to like creep around objects a little bit. So get a little bit, you know, I wouldn't want to do this. I wouldn't want to come in here and like do that, because this looks better. You can see there's like the perfect selection. That's a little bit of light creep. That just happens. Light creeps around and it makes things look like, I don't know, it tends to give a little bit of life to things. I like it when things look like that. All right, well, that looks pretty good. Now, you know what what we're gonna do? I'm gonna take that same color and I'm gonna just paint it right over my subject, just like that. We're gonna go from normal down to screen. I know, looks like I'm going crazy here. All right, normal down to screen. And then I want this to only show up on the highlights of my subject. I want to brighten those highlights up a little bit and give them a little bit of color. So what we're going to do is we're going to use what's called blend if to make this only visible where our subject's highlights are visible. So to get to blend if, just go to FX and blending options, or simply double click on layer. Okay, now here in our blend if options, which is right down here on the very bottom, we're going to choose the underlying layer, which basically means not this layer, but everything underlying it. Okay, and I'm going to hold the Alt or the Option key to separate these two things out so we get some feathering. And as I bring this from left to right, it's basically saying this layer that I'm on, it's telling it to be invisible. Okay, this is your visibility here. So this layer will be invisible where the underlying layer is dark. Okay, so the yellow disappears when the image is dark. All right, let's bring this from the left to the right and see how it looks. Looks pretty good. Lower the opacity, bring the opacity back up. Let's hit OK. Hopefully this should hit some of the highlights in our subject and help bring her into the light a little bit more. Looks good. And we can put a layer mask on this and layer mask some of these areas out. Now, you're not stuck with this color. I started with this color, but if you want to change this color, you can do so at any time. Just hit Control or Command U, as in ukulele, and it will bring up your hue/saturation. So I could see increase my saturation, decrease it. I can change my hue. You can see it's got a purplish tone now. It's greenish tone, lightness and darkness, and we can change all kinds of things here. So you can always change colors after you apply them. Don't ever feel like you're stuck. All right. Well, we're looking pretty good, I think, actually. Let's lower opacity just a little bit more. Yeah, I'm liking this. I think we're doing a great job so far. Okay, so our color, let's see. Let's darken this down a little bit more and desaturate it. Okay, so let's grab an adjustment layer. We're going to go to levels, take our white point and just kind of drag that down a little bit more. We'll hit Control or Command I, and then I'm just going to color this. Anytime something's like pulls my eye, you know, out towards the corner of an image, I'm a big fan of just minimizing that by, you know, changing the color or the light or whatever. All right, that darkened it down, but it's still the wrong color. So let's create a new layer, hit B for the brush tool, and we're gonna sample this color. And I'm gonna paint over there and just change the layer blend mode from normal down to color. Look at that. There we go, sample that color there. All right. Paint some other colors in here just so it doesn't look, you know, so much the same. All right. you know what? This is, instead of bringing that, let's do like that. There we go. That color is, it's nice. Whoa. I can't believe it looked like that before. How distracting. After, good. Now we're focused back on our subject again. See, little things like that tend to make a big difference in the final image. Okay, next thing we're going to do is we're going to use a dust brush. We're going to use a dust brush, and we created the dust brush in the first tutorial in the falling method, and now we're going to reuse the brush. The brush is included in your download, by the way. If you'd like to see how you can save or load a brush, I'll show you how right now. So we're going to go to brush tool, B for the brush tool. I'm going to right click, and now we have our brush menu here. And if we'd like to go to our brush preset manager, just click on this little gear and go down to preset manager. Now you can see I only have 3 brushes in Photoshop. Normally I have more. This computer that I'm on decided to, the hard drive failed recently, so I had to start over from scratch. So these are my 3 brushes. I've got, let's see, this is like dust 1, dust 2, and a regular brush. So if I wanted to save these, I'll just hold Control or Command and click on the 3 of those so you can see they're all selected. I'm going to hit Save, Set, and now we're going to go here to our Levitation. All right, and we're going to just call these Levitation brushes. There we go. So those are the Levitation brushes. That's it, done. Now, I just showed you how to save those brushes, but if you'd like to load the brushes that are included with this tutorial, you can do one of 2 things. You can simply go to hit B, free brush tool, right click, and then go down here and go to load brushes. Then it's your job to navigate to brushes and the levitation brushes.abr and hit open. The other way to load brushes into Photoshop is to simply find levitation brushes.abr in your tutorial and double click on it, and it will automatically load into Photoshop. So levitation brushes.abr, we'll hit open. There we go. And you can see now I have 6 because it put those in there. If you'd like to get rid of a brush, hold the Alt or the Option key while looking at the screen, and it will change your little hand into a pair of scissors. You can click, 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 get rid of them. I like keeping things nice and clean. So these are all the brushes that I want right now. That's all that I'm going to see. Great. Let's go ahead and choose this brush, which is Dust 2. Okay. Now with this brush, what we're going to do is I'm going to create a new layer, hit B for the brush tool. Okay. We're going to choose a very light color again, and I'm just going to paint around. And literally here, I'm just clicking around and dragging, and it's creating dust for me. And if you're curious on how we made this brush, just check out the tutorial for the falling method, because we showed you guys how to actually create this. All right, there we go. So we got a lot of dust going on, and I'm not clicking a bunch of times. I'm just clicking in and moving my cursor around. And it creates all these little specks of dust here, which kind of looks cool when it's like catching the light. Okay. You can just do this all day if you want, or you can stop right now, like I will. If there is dust that you don't want visible, like I've got some down here, so E for the eraser tool, make a large soft edge brush and just kind of erase the dust away. It'll help add a little bit more like randomness to the dust anyway, and it'll make it look more realistic. So I recommend just like, running an eraser around there anyway. So it doesn't look so Photoshoppy now, but it's still there. Zoom in and show you. See, still there. If you were to print this out large, you would want to blur your dust a little bit to make it a little bit less pronounced. If you're going on the web, you may even want to make your dust bigger. It totally depends on viewing size. See, here doesn't look that great. It would need a blur. Here looks great. Doesn't need a blur. So keep that sort of thing in mind. It's going to really depend on your final output as to how large you make your dust and whether or not you decide to blur the dust. Okay, this looks great. We're gonna just change a couple colors to finish it off, and we'll be done. I'm excited because this is gonna be really cool with the color. So last thing we're gonna do, I'm gonna grab an adjustment layer. We're gonna go down here to our color balance. Okay, now here in our color balance, we have our highlights, midtones, and our shadows. You can adjust color on each of the three. My suggestion is to stick with the midtones and highlights for the most part. Shadows tend to make things too dark and too saturated, and I'm not a fan of messing with shadows so much. But if you start off with midtones and then work into highlights, you can get some really, really nice coloring going. So for the midtones, we're gonna put some blue and some green in there, and then maybe put some, there we go, put some teal. This is one of those things where I'm just gonna play around for a minute because there's not really a set formula. It's gonna be different from every image that you do, but I find that this is a very intuitive way of working with colors. Because you can see right here, sliders, highlights, midtones, and shadows. All right. So we can cool this image down a little bit. We can warm it up a little bit. All right. There we go. Now let's play around with our shadows just a little bit. You can see how it's starting to make it really dark, but I do kind of like that little bit of magenta in there. All right. Yep, that's too much. We done disturbed the balance. All right. Yeah, okay. Now we're starting to get somewhere. I wish this were a little bit more straightforward, but it really is. It's a preference thing, and it's also going to change for every image. So what I really recommend is just getting in here and working with these sliders. Don't feel like you got to rush it, and take some time to just kind of find out where your image is. Kind of rest. Keep in mind one thing to think about when you're doing this: warmer images, like something like, it's too warm, but something a little bit on the warm side will kind of give that like spring, summer type like feeling that it's actually physically warm in the building temperature wise. And cooler images like blues and greens and stuff will make it feel like it's cold. Doesn't that? It kind of looks cold in there, and it kind of looks like a little bit warm now. So keep that in mind. That may depend on what you actually want out of your image. You may want an image that has like a very warm feel. Like if I was photographing someone on a summer day and, I was using a shallow depth of field and it was sunny, I wouldn't edit it so it was cold colors. I wouldn't put a lot of blues and greens. I'd stick more towards like reds and yellows and oranges to kind of enhance the feeling of the day. So one thing to, kind of keep in mind. All right, and then we'll just make this visible and invisible. That's kind of cool. Underneath this layer, let's play around. Let's grab another curves adjustment layer. We're just going to brighten things down up a little bit and warm them up a little bit too. All right. Now the other thing that I suggest doing is, let's make this a little bit darker here where the window is. The other thing that I suggest doing is spending a little bit of time away from your image. So after you're done editing, go grab a cup of coffee or whatever it is, and then come back and see if you still like the colors that you've put onto your image. Because if you get to the place where you think the image is good, there's a good chance you've been staring at it for a while, and you might find that you just kind of get used to it. It happens to me all the time where I'll edit an image and I'm like, man, that looks great. I'm gonna show that to my mom. And and then I'll come back like 10 minutes later and be like, oh, that does not look great. I need to keep working on it. Your eyes kind of get used to it, used to looking at the image. One way to kind of give it a quick test, you can right click here on the background and you can like change the colors of the background, like light gray, go to a custom, like a blue, select your custom color. You can select white. This will give you a little bit better of an idea of, you know, what it's going to look like. And this is another great tip. Actually, I'm really glad this came up. If you are planning on putting this, let's say you're going to put your image on a blog. Let's say this is going to go on like Tumblr, okay? Or it's going to go on your Flickr page or your own personal website. And your own personal website has a white background. You're going to find that you might want to edit your image a little bit differently than if you were to put it on black. Let's see what it looks like on black. You can see it's plenty bright on black. Even here in the shadows, I can see detail here in the shadows, like zooming in. I'm like, okay, cool. I can see detail there, stuff like that, you know? It looks pretty good on black. If I change this back to white, I'm like, man, this looks so dark in comparison. So what I would probably wind up doing then is going into my levels and like lightening up my darks just a little bit, you know, something maybe like this to give it a little bit more, you know, to give it a little bit more lightness, or using a curves adjustment layer or something like that. So, yeah, I like that red in there. It's kind of nice. So keep those things in mind when you're editing, you know, where the end goal for your image is going to very much affect the end color. The end goal, I should say, the end display. All right, you know what? I'm gonna bring up the contrast just a little bit. So for that, we're gonna go down to our brightness and contrast. I almost never use this, but right now I just want to. All right, we're gonna hit Command I, and we're gonna bring up the contrast of her dress just a little bit more. All right, that's a cool image. Let's give it a medium gray. That looks good. Color work is something I really try to not rush, because it's so important and it's so fragile that it's really easy to make things look really good or not really good. So I would suggest not rushing color. All right, that looks great. Do I want maybe my shadows? I just want to pull a little bit out of the magenta. Yeah, and I am obviously in the middle of a tutorial right now, so it's gonna slightly affect my colors because I don't have the luxury of, like, you know, taking a 20-minute break and coming back and adjusting the colors and things like that. But if you are editing your image, I highly recommend going away for a while, coming back, and looking at your colors once more. Okay. Yeah, I think we're in pretty good shape here. All right. Let's take a look at the before and the after with the color. Whoa, big difference, huh? Big difference. Let's bring the opacity down on this a little bit. Okay, now we're just going to go in here and turn some of these layers off and on, just to make sure all those little changes that we made still make sense. This, I don't think we need this layer, so we're just going to click there, delete it. Got our bit of light going on. That light in the window is really nice. You know what? This layer is it doesn't look 100% natural, does it? So we're going to just give it a blur. I'm going to go to Filter, Blur, and then Gaussian Blur. All right. What I meant is like the the shape of the actual layer mask that I painted didn't look like it came from the light. It looked like I was just trying to lighten up part of the image, which I was, but it didn't work as well as I wanted it to. So that's a really great great way to kind of go back and check everything you've done. Look at that floor. Look at that. She was like 3 inches off the floor, and now it looks like she's floating in a world on her own. That's nice. That's a nice image. All right. Well, guys, that is the end of this tutorial. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it, and we'll see you in the next section. And that's it for the jumping method, guys. You can see how easy it really is to take a photo of your subject jumping off an object and then remove that object in Photoshop. So this is one of my favorite methods because anyone, no matter who you are, no matter what you have available, you can do this method of levitation. So start off here. It's gonna be a lot of fun. Don't get hurt jumping in the air, but you can use everything that you learned throughout the photography section of this tutorial, as well as the Photoshop, to make your own levitation photos.